I'm Kusum Chauhan. I am currently pursuing my master's in English from Daulat College, University of Delhi. I have recently also graduated from University of Delhi only in BA Honors English from Dayal Singh Evening College. And very recently, I have also completed a 3-year advanced diploma degree in German language from University of Delhi itself. So, without further ado, I would like to start my presentation on the mentioned topic Unheard Voices Women in Partition and Present Today. Before I proceed, I would first of all like to bring into account the objectives of this presentation, like what is going to be the flow of this presentation. So, first of all, we'll be touching a little bit on the introductory background of the partition and its consequences to make us reconnect with the times of partition era 1947, and then how partition impacted lives of people on social, cultural, economic, and psychological levels, how under such circumstances women's plight can be discussed. So slowly and gradually I will try to bring women into the light, and what impact does any kind of war further destabilizes the condition of women. Extending it a bit further, we will see how women are being treated in contemporary war zones like Israel Palestine, or recently acquired Taliban's acquirement of uh, Afghanistan. Then, citing works and through the help of newspaper clippings, I would also try to demonstrate the plight of women. And concluding the talk, I will try to bring into light the current conditions of women across the world and how we can bring these into light, if not immediately resolve them. It's going to be an informative session, so I would like to begin with it with this particular quotation by Benedict Anderson that says the idea of a nation is very abstract. Now, how do the discourses of independence and partition cohabit even after being immensely contrasting? Like आप एक side तो independence की बात कर रहे हैं, पर दूसरी time at the cost of what? At the cost of partition, right? So the discourse of freedom is all about getting freedom from colonial rule. It has a positivist ideological idea of history where the event of independence was seen as a progress and evolution from the darker age. The darker age stands here as the colonial rule, right? The European powers that had over India, right? That was the darker age for India. Then the partition of the nation challenges and questions the identity of the nation. The rigid ideas of nationhood get challenged, and thus it is pertinent to say, as Benedict Anderson in his excellent essay Imagine Communities has said, that the idea of a nation is very abstract. To put it simply, उस डार्कर एज का जो परछाई है वो आज भी कहीं ना कहीं हमारे प्रेजेंट में है, हमें हॉन्ट कर रहा है. वी विल सी ग्रेजुअली हाउ इट इज हॉन्टिंग अस इवन टुडे. Now, the discourse of partition also challenges the discourse of independence, because there is a significant erasure and whitewashing of stories which reveal darker aspects of independence. Only statistics and infrastructure costs are mentioned. सिर्फ numbers बता रखे हैं, कहीं किसी डेटा में, कहीं किसी डेटा में. But what about human cost? क्या हमने ये जानने की कोशिश करी कि जो उस टाइम पे लोग थे उनकी आप बीती क्या थी, उनकी जिंदगी में उस टाइम पे किस तरीके का ट्रॉमा, किस तरीके का डिलेमा वो लोग फेस कर रहे थे. एक्ट्स ऑफ वायलेंस वर परपिट्रेटेड ऑन बॉडीज ऑफ रियल ब्रीदिंग लिविंग पीपल. उनकी आप बीती में झांकने की कोशिश कहीं नहीं की गई. एंड दस जैसे आज हम फॉर इंस्टेंस एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं कि हम आज अपने घर से अगर कहीं शिफ्ट करते हैं तो हम कितना प्लानिंग से करते हैं, बट उस टाइम पे लोगों को उनकी घर, उनकी जमीन, उनके देश से उनके ऊपर टॉर्चर करके उनको निकाला जा रहा था. इतना सडन चेंज था वो कि लोग उस डिलेमा में फंसे रह गए. एंड thus the trauma of a particular human being began during that time, and that was the human cost. Around the clock, there was also the social, cultural, economic, and psychological impact. And what were these? Feeling of hatred and suspicion on either sides of the border. दोनों तरफ border के एक दूसरे के ऊपर ही शक कर रहे हैं, आपस में कम्युनिटीज भिड़ गई हैं, dismantled brotherhood and idea of rising communalism was also there, and it is reported that around 14 million families moved from either side of the border, and amidst these 14 million families, around 1 million families were expected to be dead. Can you imagine the the pain, the suffering, and the trauma of these lost 1 million families? And obviously, the unawareness and confusion among the masses was pertinent during those times. And thereby, it is interesting to note that while recovering and recording political history, the social history lags behind. मतलब आपके पास political data तो है, आपके पास statistics भी हैं, but जो social, जो cultural level पे changes आ रहे थे, उनको record करने की कोशिश नहीं की गई. And that's why the books like Other Side of Silence by Urvashi Butalia, or for that matter, Border and Boundaries by Ritu Menon and Kamla Bhasan, come into account to bring into the highlight the suffering and pain and trauma of people during those times. Now, I would like to quote Urvashi Butalia from her book. And she says that in order to be able to hear women's voices, or for that matter, anybody's voices, the most important of things was to listen to their speech, their nuances, their silences, and the half said things. यानी कि उनकी बातों की अर्थ की गहराइयों को समझने की कोशिश हम सबको करनी चाहिए, और उनको जरूरत है समझने की. In English, we can simply put it as reading between the lines. When we are reading something, we try to read between the lines. Similarly, when we are, talking to someone, we try to listen to the half said things, right? And that is one technique that Urvashi Butalia in her book The Other Side of Silence uses, right? To connect with the stories and to retrace, reconceptualize the entire trauma of partition in the lives of the people. And that is why the medium of narratives, oral literature, memoirs, and memories become an important aspect to retrace these histories. It is also pertinent to bring into account the idea of long partition that is postulated by Wazira Zamindar, and it says that partition is an event which continues to affect our lives in the present. Partition can't be looked as an event of the past. The ramifications of this historical act still influences the present. It has been rightly said by Walter Benjamin that there is no document of civilization which is not at the same time a document of barbarism. Obviously, these two civilizations came into force. One was Pakistan and one was India. But at the cost of what? At the cost of barbarism, at the cost of torture, pain, trauma, right? And that's how these two civilizations came into force. And thus, Walter Benjamin's idea stands right here. And this is why the human and psychological dimension of history is also important to bring into account. And how can we bring all of this into account? Through the medium of language. As I've mentioned here in my slide, that measure so far, that language is a medium to express certain emotions which also exhibits mental composure of the masses. So when we are talking to someone, when we are telling or sharing an incident, we are not just talking, right? हम उनको सिर्फ अपना वो इंसिडेंट नहीं बता रहे होते हैं, हम अपने कुछ सर्टेन इमोशंस भी कैरी करते हैं लैंग्वेज के मीडियम के थ्रू, जो हम दूसरे तक कन्वे कर पाते हैं इजीली. एंड इफ नॉट एम्पथाइज, we at least try to sympathize with the people. हमें अगर आज कोई अपना इंसिडेंट बताता है तो हम उनसे कनेक्ट कर पाते हैं, हम sympathize कर पाते हैं, right? And that is why language becomes an important source to retrace these histories and to know and to prove कि जो भी ये पार्टीशन एरा के टाइम पे ट्रॉमा चलता रहा, ये सिर्फ अभी पास्ट की बात नहीं है, बट ये प्रेजेंट में भी कैरी हो रहा है. बट कैसे आगे अब हम इसको कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश करते हैं. बट बिफोर दैट आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू ब्रिंग इनटू अकाउंट द आइडिया जर जमीन जोरू जोर की नहीं तो किसी और की. ये एक बहुत पुरानी कहावत है. नाउ आई एम ट्राइंग टू ग्रेजुअली ब्रिंग women into the account and how women were particularly being treated in this entire partition era, and how what is the picture she stands today in present, right? So jar jameen joru jor ki nahi to kisi aur ki. In English it is literally translated as power beholds money, land and women, right? So there was a kind of process of sanitization that was something which was undergoing within people's personal narratives. Now it was not just a political endeavor. ये अब एक पॉलिटिकल मोटिव नहीं रह गया था पार्टीशन के टाइम पे लोगों का, ये उन्होंने अपना पर्सनल और मोटिव और पर्सनल राइवलरीज निकालने के लिए एक मोटिव ढूंढ लिया था, राइट? एंड द क्वेश्चन रिमेन्स, like the important question that remains still, that what authority has women over herself amidst all of this? Where do we place women amidst all of this? अब ये पॉलिटिकल सिनेरियो जो भी ठीक है चल रहा था कि बॉर्डर्स के रिगार्डिंग कुछ भी न्यूज आ रही है, अभी ये अनाउंसमेंट हो गया है, अभी वो अनाउंसमेंट हो गया है, नए नए तरीके के ऑपरेशंस लॉन्च कर रही है, दोनों साइड्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट, टू रिट्रीव पीपल। बट उनके पर्सनल डिलेमास क्या थे, उनको रिट्रेस कैसे किया गया, और उस पर्सनल डिलेमा में भी हम विमेन को कहाँ प्लेस कर सकते हैं, इट इज स्टिल क्वेश्चनेबल टुडे। So can we say कि हर नरेशन ऑफ हर बॉडीज विक्टिमाइजेशन, उसकी कहानी उसकी जुबानी सुनने के क्या कोई टेक्निक नहीं बची हमारे पास, क्या कोई तरीका नहीं बचा उनको ट्रेस करने का? And it is ultimately right to say that it is they, the women, who are conquered, right? The feminist historiography of partition would suggest that women never conquered land. It is sadly a masculine project. As Anya Lumba formulates, female bodies symbolize the conquered land. Hence, it is not the female herself, but her body which collectively represents a community and its conquered land. Because we see during the partition era, we heard a lot of stories, a lot of documentaries have also been, being made available and accessible to us, where we have seen that women were kept as assets, right? But never killed. जैसे ही किसी विमेन को पकड़ा जाता था, उसे तुरंत मारा नहीं जाता था, उसे एक एसेट की तरह रख लिया जाता था, औरतों पे कब्जा किया जा रहा था, उन्हें फर्टिलाइज किया जा रहा था, लेकिन मारा नहीं जा रहा था, रीयूज किया जा रहा था उनको मशीन्स की तरह, अपने डोमेस्टिक वर्क्स के लिए, अपने एंटरटेनमेंट के लिए, उस एक्सप्लॉइटेशन के लिए, लेकिन उनको डायरेक्टली मारा नहीं जा रहा था. So what can we say? That it is they, the women, who are conquered in the name of a particular land, right? एक लैंड पे अपना हक जमाने के लिए उस औरत को पकड़ लिया जाता था, और ये सिंबलाइज करने के लिए कि we are the powerful ones. So before we proceed further, I would also like to show you this particular slide, in which I have gathered some of the newspaper clippings with the help of printer set, right? And in this you can see that all kinds of political news were being covered. आप जितनी भी हेडलाइंस यहाँ पे स्पॉट कर सकते हैं, आप देख सकते हैं कि गांधी इज शॉट डेड, डिवीजन ऑफ पंजाब प्रोविंस, देन भगत सिंह राजगुरु सुखदेव एग्जीक्यूटेड, India independent, British rule ends. All the political endeavors and all the political news were being constructed, right? And they were being passed through the masses. But if we go out and try to find out today, you will not find a particular paper or a particular publication which states how many particularly women were being affected during these times. And it's very saddening to know that until Kamla Bhasin and Ritu Menon's book Border and Boundaries came out, earlier than that, we had no political data, we had no authentic source to retrace the history of women herself during the times of partition, the trauma that she had faced. So, before we proceed further, I would also like to bring into account Amrita Pritam's novel Pinjar, that means the skeleton, and it is about the ways in which women get situated at the crossroads of an extended array of events, norms, rights, and laws which lay claim on her body in intrusive and invasive ways. To put it simply, Pinjar is a particular novel by Amrita Pritam, and in this novel, the character of the women that you see here, Puru, she is a Sikh woman who has been abducted by Rashid, this particular Muslim guy from another community, and he tortures her. He has abducted her in the name of the land. To make my point clearer, I would just show the beginning of this clip for a minute, and so that we can interpret it further.
कल सवेरे नहा धोकर तैयार हो जाना, मौलवी आके निकाह पढ़ा देगा। मुझ पर रहम कर रशीद। देखो होना होना कुछ नहीं है। बेकार मेरे सिर पर गुनाह का बोझ न लगा। कसम अल्लाह पाक की, मुझसे तुम्हारा रोना देखा नहीं जाता। तुझे तेरे अल्लाह की कसम है, मुझे सच सच बता, तूने मेरे साथ ऐसा क्यों किया? बोलो, हमारा संबंध कोई पिछला लेना देना ही है। तुम्हें इन बातों से क्या मिलेगा? जो हो गया सो हो गया। मैं तुम्हें सारी उम्र कोई तकलीफ नहीं होने दूंगा। गुरु, हमारे शेखों के घराने और तुम्हारे शाहों के घराने में दादा परदादा के समय से मैल चला आ रहा है। तुम्हारे दादा ने 500 रुपए में गिरवी रखे हुए मकान पर ब्याज दर ब्याज लगाया था और कुर्की कराकर शेखों घराने को घर से बेघर किया था।
So you see how Rashid the guy here again and again वो घराने की बात कर रहा है। आज से 50 साल पहले या 500 साल पहले जो उनके दादा परदादाओं ने कुछ किया होगा, आज उसका जो भी जिम्मा है वो पूरू इस लड़की को भुगतना पड़ रहा है। तो as we discussed the idea of the women here, that she is the fodder for the so long hunger of rivalry. It is she who is being again the victim here. It is she जो कि 50 साल पुरानी राइवलरी चल रही है, उस सब का जिम्मा ये ढो रही है. Ultimately it is a women's body which gets, you know, into the folds of trauma, into the folds of perpetration and acts of violence, and not the men, right? Because ultimately उनको तो land conquer करना है, उनका तो वो masculine project रहा है. But yes, as I extended my idea that where women stand today, gone are the days of 1947. That was the era, right? But now with the growing technology, we have access to all the media around us and all the news, you know, that is happening around the globe today. But still, it is to be seen that mentality has not changed, right? The female body is bifurcated as representing not just the self. The female body is split into two, where she is at one hand herself and the other hand she is an entity of a nation's pride. Take for instance the Israel Palestine issue. It's been more than 30 days. It has crossed 1 month since the war has started, and in these 30 days only more than 3,000 deaths of women have been reported so far, and they have been abducted, held hostage and tortured. And why not just, you know, Israel Palestine? Let us take into account the Taliban Afghanistan issue. The Taliban Pashtun power has returned in Afghanistan in 2021, and they have immediately launched GBV, that is also known as gender based violence. What is gender based violence? It has been officially recognized by UN Women Peace Force also. And in the gender based violence, what they are doing, they are excluding women from all spheres of life, from cultural, academic, social, political, everywhere. They have put ban on girls for pursuing their higher studies. They have banned women from teaching and attending universities. Even more so, they are allowing women only to appear in public places with a male chaperone, and that too must be her lawfully wedded husband or her father. Otherwise, women are actually being tortured for seen in public. The women over there are today fighting for rights as basic as, you know, dress as desired. So these types of laws are being passed in Taliban controlled Afghanistan today. And if we move a bit further, I would like to show this particular clip from Israel Palestine, where this woman, she is asking for basic rights, as basic as to breathe, even in a clean air for her sister in the Israel Palestine war zone.
My sister has asthma and chronic sinusitis. We can only imagine how she's struggling, gasping for air, wherever she's being held underground. Can you understand the feeling of fighting to breathe? Such a basic need. She also had chronic kidney stones that caused her for countless of hospitalizations and horrible pain. Do you think anyone over there care for her pain? Hamas has to release them immediately. Immediately. This is not a war. This is a crime against humanity, against all women and mothers around the world.
So, such is the plight of women over there. And why not we take a look more into the accounts of what is happening to women around the globe? Not just Israel Palestine, not just Taliban acquired Afghanistan, but even today in China, the fastest growing urban country in the world. In China also, the Turkic Muslims are being held hostage and sent to prison for merely, downloading Islamic religious recordings or sending them across their family members and relatives in China in the state of Uyghur. There was a particular reporter, Harry Cockburn, and he visited there and he said that Muslim women describes torture and beatings in China detention camps. There was a particular woman he interviewed that said that I begged them to kill me, because obviously no person, no human being would like to live under such dire circumstances where you are being shot dead just because for sending your religious recordings to a family member. And this is the condition so far. And also in Russia Ukraine war zone, obviously under the war zone area there were not so much of reporting on the issue of women over there, but UN Women has released an article that says that there was increased risks of gender based violence and sexual exploitation even in Russia Ukraine war zone. And coming back to the frame of India, for instance, for a slight number of seconds, I would also like to bring into account the Manipur violence. We all know that it was an ethnic conflict, but ultimately it was turned into a personal one, because all the perpetration, all the torture was being done on the body of a woman over there. So, what have we learned so far? Thus, the women, holds a diasporic identity, dwindling between borders and boundaries. And I raise this question in accordance with Gayatri C. Spivak's idea of the subaltern, that can she, the women, the subaltern of a traumatizing partition, speak for herself? That women caught in this double bind that Gayatri C. Spivak argues informs the excavation, retrieval, and celebration of the historical individual, the effort of bringing her within accessibility. So, with that being said, I would like to also bring into account, Train to Pakistan, a particular novel by Khushwant Singh. Obviously, it's a fiction, but again, it also brings into account how women were being denied the basic rights, as basic as to move or decide to stay in that particular country, in that particular area. But how can we contribute? How can we help the women across the world and around us? So obviously reaching out to the right kind of forces and NGOs that help women in distress, like Women Peace Security, Women War and Peace Community. This community also like, just to add one point here, that this particular community, Women War and Peace, also has documentaries to show. So if with the help and accessibility of the principals and the HODs, it can be shown around universities and help us make aware about the condition of women, right? Then UN Women, Association for Women's Rights in Development, AWID, and Womenkind Worldwide. These are some of the right kind of forces and NGOs that can help us to make aware of the situation, and not just going and visiting these sites and reading their articles, but also they have, certain summertime programs and winter time programs where you can join in and be an intern and get in touch with the team, with the force, and know how they are working at the ground root level. This can also enhance and make your interest in this field, in this discourse, and to know the condition of women in war zone areas, in war affected areas. Then approaching the authentic sources of information to keep us updated is one another factor. And word of mouth is very important. If you know something and you think that it is right to share with the other person just so to help them and to make them aware of that particular condition, I think it's very good. So that, at least when you will tell somebody, they will tell somebody, and that is how the word of mouth goes on. If not help, at least make people aware, at least try to sympathize with the conditions, so that the word approaches, a greater number of people, a greater number of masses. Then reading stories, publishing papers and articles that help us to formulate an idea and dig deeper into it is an excellent way, so that more interpretations and more researches and discoveries can be made into this discourse. And we can help access, better ways in approaching the women, in approaching and providing them aid at the right time. And that's with that all. These are some of the articles that I have mentioned in my presentation, and if you feel like, you can also visit them on JSTOR and have a look at them, and read what are some of the interpretations by some of the major researchers in this field, in this arena. With that being said, I would like to conclude my presentation here. Thank you so very much. Please feel free to reach out to me. I welcome each and every suggestion and also constructive criticism on this presentation, as I am also a learner just like you all. Thank you so much once again.
I have some questions as well regarding today's presentation. So let's take them one by one. The first question is by Mr. Shubham, and he's asking that what do you think? What are the challenges and opportunities for promoting gender equality and women's empowerment in post-conflict societies?
For the post-conflict societies, right, where the war has already been done and the process of, coming out of the war is going on, we can definitely again approach to the right kind of forces, as I've mentioned, UN Women and other sources, right? And we can get in touch with them. We can try to demonstrate and, send them at least mails or requests, to come over here and record and help women over here to retrieve their lost identities, that during the war they have lost. So one more point that I wanted to present, and I think it's a very good question. With that, I will conclude that I hope everyone knows Malala Yousafzai. So she is a 12-year-old Nobel Peace winner, right? And when Taliban, Pakistan, Pushtun powers have acquired over there also, and they have put a ban on girls and their education, it was she who came into highlight, who brought this matter to the front of the world. And today she is also advocating for the rights of women, right? For the rights of education. And thus how women in Pakistan today are able to study further and pursue higher studies. And there was recently a case where I read that like one Hindu woman was recently been has recently cleared a civil service examination of Pakistan, and she has been made a civil servant over there. So these are the ways, in some ways, in which women are actually overcoming these situations, and they are also trying to strengthen other women around them, being the ideal for those women who are facing such problems. So that is how we can overcome these issues.
Okay. Now, the next question is by Mr. Saurabh, and he's asking, does culture and religion norms and practices intersect with gender to shape women's experience in conflict zone?
As far as religion and communities are concerned, I think when it comes to women, it already and naturally becomes a very sensitive issue, because we are seeing that it is not about communities. Even during the partition, I would say that it was not about the communities, rather it was ultimately the body of the women who was, being perpetrated and who was facing all of these issues. And even if it would have been about the communities, then what is happening in China today is very distressing. I mean, if it's really about the communities, we have to have an idea, greater than that, broader than that. And we have to look at the condition of the women, the lives of women, because at the end of the day, it is she who is crying to herself at night before going to sleep. It is she who is feeling sorry for having the fate of being a woman in countries and war zone affected areas. So I think religion and communities do not play a greater role. They have a kind of a role, but not as great as being a woman. So that being said, I would like to conclude my answer here.
Okay, and that was really nice answer. Last question I'll take is by Ms. Manvi Saraswat, and she's asking, how does privatization of security and rise of non-state actors impact women's safety and security during and after conflict?
Privatization of security and rise of non-state actors impact women's safety and security during and after conflict. With privatization, obviously we have in command and we have intervention of the greater powers, the greater companies, the hegemonies of the world, right? And with that, obviously they are able to, retrace and, recall the women, and they are actually providing a platform for women to come and outperform themselves. And that is how I think that's one aspect of motivation for women today around the globe. And by approaching these, she can definitely come to the platform. And I think it's a very good question and a very new perspective in this discourse. We can take this up further and, rather do more research into this. And I would like to do research on this as well. So thank you for bringing this into my account. That's a very good perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Question. Now, one last question is from our side, which we always ask to our speakers, that what is your experience with this platform and like throughout the week when you were preparing for your presentation or collecting the data for your presentation? So, what is your overall experience with this platform as a speaker?
I really wholeheartedly want to thank GSTS platform for providing me with this golden opportunity. I have always wanted to present this paper, and to be very honest and frank with the members here, my original paper idea was just limiting to partition itself. But with the guidance of Manish sir, Mr. Shubham here, and everyone in the team, I was able to extend my ideas further and delve deeper into it. I was able to connect this idea of partition even in today's present times, and hence the title of my presentation, Women's Unheard Voices in Partition and Present. So that's how we also came up with the new heading. And I really want to thank the entire team for bringing out these new perspectives, because this new perspective helped me to delve deeper into it, made me more enthusiastic about my own paper which I had already written, and I was able to connect it with the worldwide scenarios. When I was doing research for my presentation, even I was touched by the plight and condition of women across the globe. Like Turkic Muslims in China was something which was new to me also. I wasn't also not aware of the same situation, but with the help of GSTS platform and the direction that they provided me over the week, I was able to get into touch into these accounts. And I really, really thank all the members here for helping me with this and giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Now, proceeding further, it's time to invite our today's guest of honor, Miss Akriti ma'am, again for her final remarks over today's topic, over today's presentation, which you have presented, and over this initiative. Ma'am, please.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Kusum for this well articulated presentation.
I have two, 3 points actually. It's a appreciation actually, because I'm from history, so I know how sources are very important. And you have used so many sources, like the oral history, memoirs, and the literary sources like Urvashi Bhutalia, Kamla Bhasin. I mean, you are not from history background. You are from English, but still you are using these sources. You know the importance of sources in our writing. So thank you so much for using them and enlighten us, because sources का relevance हम सबके लिए बहुत important है. Thank you.